Hello everyone, I'm Charlotte, and I have a rather unusual family story to share with you. You won't believe it, but my mother's profession is quite extraordinary. Let's take a stroll down memory lane together. I was born into a very affluent family. My father was a successful business magnate, and my mother worked as a computer analyst. Life was fantastic until my parents began encountering difficulties in their marriage. One evening after school, I returned home to find my mother in tears at the dinner table. It was a rare sight as she usually shielded her emotions from me. However, that night, she beckoned me to join her as she wiped away her tears. "What's wrong, Mom?" I inquired. It was then that my mother disclosed that my father had filed for divorce. My world came to a standstill for a moment. I wondered what the future held for us. I had a sinking feeling that things were about to take a turn for the worse. You see, my father was the wealthy one, and my mother had never had to rely on her own finances. The divorce was particularly high stakes, and my father seemed to care little for our well-being. By that point, he had already relocated to another country with his mistress. Despite the challenging divorce proceedings, my mother quickly found a new job and regained her footing. However, that's when things took an unusual turn. I mean, seriously peculiar. My mother underwent a transformation in her appearance and began accumulating more and more possessions. Our house started resembling a set from a reality TV show. She worked odd hours, regardless of how late or early it was. Whenever her phone rang, she responded promptly. It wasn't until one fateful night that I stumbled upon her secret. Allow me to reveal it all to you. My mother was operating a dating service where people would hire her to be their date and pay exorbitant sums to maintain the facade. She had garnered quite the social media following, making her easily accessible to individuals seeking her unique services. The idea had initially blossomed from a mere fantasy, inspired by a TV sitcom she had once watched. My mother, far from the typical laid-back mom, possessed striking beauty, a keen sense of fashion, and an undeniable charisma that made her the life and soul of any gathering. Surprisingly, she rebounded swiftly from her divorce with my father, emerging more radiant than ever. Her striking looks and magnetic personality opened doors to opportunities beyond imagination. Her very first client happened to be an NBA player who had reached out to her after her tweet about offering fake +1 services went viral. In his direct message to her, he wrote, "Hi Harper, I have a dinner date and need a +1. Do you mind if I pay for your services?" Understandably, my mom felt nervous, considering it was her inaugural venture, but she approached it with her customary poise. She exuded confidence and elegance, which could be quite intimidating. On that evening, she adorned herself with her most exquisite jewelry, and although I was unaware of her destination at the time, I vividly recall how regal she looked with all her jewelry on display. Her date was thoroughly impressed by how seamlessly she blended in with the crowd. He even remarked it was like she was made for it. When Mom returned home that night, she was positively exhilarated, having received a check for a whopping $200,000 simply for her beauty and ability to capture everyone's attention. Her pictures graced the front pages of blogs and other talk shows. The NBA star had attended a red carpet event with her as his companion, albeit incognito, as she expertly assumed different personas to suit the roles she was tasked with. Following her initial successful date, the demand for her services skyrocketed. Mom found herself shuttling between hotels, restaurants, schools, airports, and various other venues. All it took was a message outlining the desired role, and she would flawlessly step into character, whether it was as a pretend girlfriend, a fabricated lover, a personal trainer, a secretary, or a personal assistant. She was a master at playing the part. Now you might be wondering where I fit into all of this. Well, I was living the dream teenage life at school, enjoying the benefits of having a busy but generous mother who provided for my every need. I hardly missed my father. After all, he had chosen to leave. My knowledge of Mom's unconventional job only came to light when she appeared at a club with the owner of the country's most popular brand of Moscato wine. Clearly, she had no inkling that I would be there that night. I had deceived her, claiming I was staying over at my best friend's house for a job-related reason. Sneaking into the club with the intention of having some fun with my friends, we were caught off guard when my mother unexpectedly entered around 2:15 in the morning. As she walked in, her hair was dyed blonde, and her figure was nothing short of stunning. I didn't fully grasp it was her until I heard her speak to the bartender. "Double shots, please," she requested, leaving no doubt that it was indeed my mother. My mind was racing with questions. What was she doing here? And why was she dressed like that? Strangely, I wasn't even worried that she might spot me. Summoning my courage, I approached her. "Hey, Mom," I began, but before I could finish, she cut me off. "Hey, beautiful. How can I help you?" Her words left me bewildered. Can somebody wake me up? I must be dreaming. I couldn't shake the feeling that this woman was intentionally pretending not to recognize me. I remained in a daze even when she asked the bartender to arrange free drinks and VIP lounge access for me and my friends. Something felt amiss, so I returned to my table without uttering a word. "Was that your mom?" Madison inquired. I hesitated for a moment before responding. No. I thought it was, but she didn't recognize me. It's probably just my mom's look-alike. Following the club incident, my mother called me and demanded that I come home. Despite her bossy tone, I had numerous pressing questions for her. "You lied to me, Charlotte. Why did you do that?" she asked. I simply shrugged and confessed that I hadn't anticipated seeing her there. After all, she had been intimately involved with that man, and everyone referred to her as Sophia. "Who is Sophia, Mom?" "I have questions too." We sat down for hours as my mother opened up to me. She explained that she ran a dating service where she was paid to assume various roles based on her date's desires. Just last month, there I was, featured in Vogue magazine alongside a well-known NBA star. Then, just last night, I found myself assisting Mr. You-Know-Who in making his ex-wife green with envy. It's a job, and I get paid for it. It's all strictly business. I couldn't wrap my head around it. It felt like something out of fiction. My mother, a real call girl. So essentially, you deceive and assume different personas to earn a living? She let out a chuckle and replied, "Yes, if you put it that way." I was still trying to digest all of this when she dropped another bombshell. A certain business mogul who happened to be Dad's former partner had approached her to accompany him to a conference as his mistress. The catch was that Dad was also attending. It was a truly delicate situation. The paycheck for this gig would have been the largest she'd ever received, but given the risk of her being publicly shamed or humiliated for her role as a mistress, especially fresh out of a bitter divorce, I set aside all emotions and encouraged Mom to go through with it. It would hurt Dad, but he deserved every ounce of shame that could be heaped upon him. Mom agreed to the deal, and we spent hours shopping for the most exquisite dresses and shoes. If she was going to make an appearance, she had to look her absolute best. On the 10th of that month, she made her entrance at the conference with her date, and I sat across the room, playing the role of her personal assistant. I scanned the room in search of my father, only to spot him entering hand in hand with another woman. I wasn't prepared for that sight. I took a deep breath to steady myself. Mom kept texting me, reassuring me that everything was under control and that she had it all figured out, and she did. After the conference, Dad approached her table to exchange pleasantries. I could only imagine that he couldn't help but notice how stunning Mom looked. Nevertheless, in business, you don't allow personal feelings to enter the equation. So, Mom cordially greeted him and directed him to her personal assistant for any inquiries about her contact information. Yes, she actually went through with it. Dad approached me with a perplexed expression. "Charlotte, is that you? What are you doing here?" "I've missed you," he said, feigning warmth and sincerity. His insincerity was palpable, and I wasn't buying into it. I managed to muster a polite smile and responded, "Hi, Dad, it's nice to see you too." In no time, I found myself drawn into this web of deception. I became an accomplice in this intricate web of lies. I began handling Mom's bookings, managing her online presence, and even stepping in for her when she didn't feel like going out. Mom was an absolute pro at her craft, a natural actress who starred in her own dramatic performance. It was almost as if she was destined for this role. My mother, she lies for a living.